Loaded for bear. And I said I wasn't going to talk about this, not in this way, but this whole bear conversation. And for those of you who don't know, I'll just give you a brief synopsis. It's basically women are saying that given a choice between coming across a bear or a random man in the woods, they would choose the bear. And the large consensus that I've been reading is that they understand that all a bear will do is just kill you, whereas with a lot of their experiences, they're talking to SA and things that are aggressive for adult behavior and non consensual. Um, I'm not here to dispute anybody's experience. That's certainly not where I'm coming from. And the problem is when this sort of traction gets going, very similar to the Me Too movement, when men came forward and said, not all men, that became a leverage of weaponry used against them. So then it became somebody would leave a comment and then it turned into, oh, but let me guess, it's not all men. Well, that's a fact. It's not all men. And it's not about standing up and saying it's not like your experience isn't valid or it didn't happen, but it is. There does need to be some balance put to that. We can't throw all men under this bus for what a few have done. um, I think humans just inherently have that ability to do something dangerous to the next person. Now, do men have a larger capacity and ability to do it in a physical way? Certainly. But we can't overlook that people are imprisoned in both genders for reasons. So it can't just be one side. Um, the other part with all of this is, don't we all have the room based off of negative experiences with some sort of counterpart in society to say we would pick a particular said to be dangerous animal? I could easily say that I would prefer to swim with a particular shark rather than deal with white people because of many episodes that I've had with racism. Again, this isn't to shoot down the bear conversation, but it does have to be put into context, and I don't think anybody really has to some degree. We have the ability to say, even if it's not by something like race or gender, I would just rather be, locked in a room with, I don't know, a mongoose rather than having to be around police for run-ins that I've had. We all have something. There's going to be the Muslim person that says they'd rather be around, an angry raccoon than Christians, or there's always something. And I am not saying this with tongue in cheek. This is not to be condescending. It's just to point out the fact that in society, we all have something that we've had to fight against on some level of systemic oppression that has not worked out well for us, that masses largely across our board have probably in a societal sense, especially when they have a privilege or an advantage over us, have that ability. But we can't overlook that men also get thrown a really bad deal when it comes to the balance with in regards to women in society. When you talk about, just start with at the age of 18, men are required or had been required to register for the draft, just right off of the bat. So people, young men are being sent off to die. Your odds of paying child support are more. Your odds of losing the things that you would build in a marriage are more. Alimony, I believe, is 90% towards women. All of those things, but it has nothing to do. Let me not get there, because it has nothing to do with women claiming or reporting or alleging that they have been assaulted. I don't want to get off of that point, because that's the percentage that we need to focus on. That when we would say the bear, I think any of us would rather come across a bear than a person that would want to instill violence upon us, because the bear chances are you catch it on a good day, he just wants to eat some berries and rub his back on a tree so it doesn't itch. Unless you're talking about a bear that has a territorial stake or the cubs are around, there's a good chance, yes, you're going to be okay. Um, the other question to that, though, I had was if bears were just in the city, not in their natural habitat, if bears were more spooked or things like that, does that change the bear argument? Does it change it if we saw that there was a higher chance if we put people around bears more often? Because what I've heard is there's a low incident of bear attacks. Well, people don't live by bears, not in mass like that. So does that change it if we saw, well, okay, we let bears live in metropolis cities and there is now a 5,000% increase in bear attacks? Would that change anything? Um, because I think that there's something to be said about that. I did speak to a couple of women about this, and one of the things that one of them did admit is that a lot of what is given to us in the form of unwanted attention, us meaning women, speaking for her, was the level of attraction they had to the man. So, if this is an attractive man in the woods, does it make it a closer debate to say, well, I would take the handsome man over the bear? And this is not me saying that. This came from a woman. So before you get the pitchforks and torches out, this is somebody who was willing to at least be honest about that portion of it. And I've heard that argument before when it comes to, is it harassment if the person is handsome? And a lot of times women say, nah, probably not as much because he's handsome. So I think that there's a lot of pieces to put together with this, but again, I don't want to detract from the fact that people are saying that they've been assaulted in a non-consensual way. But then again, so have men, so have children. So this isn't a struggle Olympics. This isn't for one group to be able to claim. And young children have been non-consensually touched by women. So we have that to consider as well. So are we? Is this about men or is this about bad people? Is this about people who would just do ill intent things towards people, or is it that women feel like they might be able to physically defend themselves or not have that threat from other women who might do that? Maybe we should question, would we rather be around a man that we know and trust versus just another woman who has a propensity for violence? Because when we look at these things, and the place I always like to go with this is when you just say men. First of all, I think that that's an inaccurate statement because men, as we would know them, would not commit those acts. What we're talking about are males of a legal age. And the same thing with women. A lot of them are not women. There's females of legal age. There's a difference between aging and maturity. And we need to actually really be very mindful of that because when you just say men, you're now categorizing for a lot of you who had good fathers, good grandfathers, if the father wasn't around and that's who you considered your father, uncles who were around, sons, your sons. Oh, we're looking at nephews, we're looking at teachers, we're looking at coaches, we're looking at a lot of people who have done good in society and would have no reason, we'd have no reason to suspect that they would be less trustworthy than a bear. So I look at all of these measures, and again, it's not to detract from what people's experiences are. But I do think that there's something to be said that there has to be a bit of a defense mechanism put in place because now people are just taking free shots when it comes to that. Now I'm seeing pushback too where guys, men, whatever, are making these, the remarks about the bear, things of that nature. So I think that there's a pushback now where, okay, the initial shock is over. What do you mean you'd pick a bear? Well, okay. And to be fair, the woman that I talked to, or one of them, said she would pick the bear, and I can't fault that. But knowing what some people have gone through, namely men, in the form of false allegations of non-consensual aggressions between adults, I think that there's something dangerous about that. More dangerous in a lot of ways than somebody actually just acting on it. So sometimes false allegations have led to real convictions. And I find that to be a very dangerous sentiment. I think society has its balances, but it's not, and I'm not here to censor what people are saying about their experiences. But I do think that there's a larger picture to look at. I think that there's a bigger conversation to be had. But in a lot of instances, I understand it, and I'm certainly not here to run it down. But I just wanted to put my 2 cents into it. And just as a guy, it may not resonate with a lot of people, and maybe it does, but it's still an opinion. It's still just one person's vantage point of asking questions, wanting to have a conversation without it turning ugly, without it turning into mudslinging, name calling, saying, you couldn't possibly know. I think that anybody who's been assaulted in a non consensual way of any gender has a claim. I'm not saying I'm that person, but it can't just be subjective to one gender. Now, it might be larger, but that still doesn't mean that we exclude the other gender. Otherwise, it's counterintuitive to a lot of things that um, a group would want to say, well, we've been ostracized, we've been kept, behind, we've been oppressed. Well, you can't turn around and do that to others just to keep a point going in your favor. Confirmed bias can be a bad thing at times. So I don't know. Now that you know, if you didn't know what the bear conversation was, what are your thoughts on that? And let me go back. When this first kind of came out, and I wasn't sure what the bear conversation was, my ex girlfriend and I at the time were talking, and she went in on the bear conversation about how it can be based off of experiences, things like that. And I saw where she was going, and she was getting not overly emotional, but you could tell she had a point to make. And I, like the guy that, a lot of women are saying, I was just like, I don't want to talk about this. Now, to be fair, we were already having our own things to try to overcome. So that was a conversation I didn't want to have because I didn't want it to spur into something, well, what do you think? And then I think this way and it's not the same, or maybe it differs. So there was a reason, not because I didn't want to hear what she had to say. And I did apologize the next day to say, you know what, that's what I'm sure a lot of women are feeling, like they're not being heard, or a lot of, let me not say women, a lot of people, a lot of victims and survivors are feeling. And so I did open the conversation again to say, if you want to talk about that, I would be happy to hear what it is that has you feeling this particular way, because I couldn't possibly know, not because I am a man, but because I have not had to experience, survive, or be a victim of said actions. So I just wanted to throw that little bit in there, but I would love to hear what anybody of any gender, any experience would have to say on this, and go from there. It's an old conversation as far as social media goes, because it's been going on for a couple months now. You know how quickly, it's always on to the next with social media. But I still would like to hear what people have to think about that. Ace up the sleeve, advice, comment, experience, please leave it in the comments. And it's one of those things that we have the ability to have conversations with our emotional intelligence, controlling our emotions in check. So it doesn't have to turn ugly, because we've seen it with a lot of other socially dividing conversations where people decide that they want to make it about asking disingenuous questions, or giving disingenuous answers, or just inflamed and triggered answers. We can all have our traumas and things that we haven't quite fully healed over, but we also have the ability to control our emotions when we are answering questions from people who are legitimately asking. That's the only way people are going to have a better understanding of the demographic we are in, is by answering it and giving whole conversations and real time towards it. So I'm going to leave it at that. Hopefully, you guys have subscribed to the channel. If not, please subscribe, share it with your friends. Would love to see more people on the channel and having conversations. And Subscriptions are free. Free is a good thing. So hopefully this finds everybody in your place, pursuit, or beginnings of total health, mind, body, and soul. Peace, love, unity, solidarity. And right here, you should be able to subscribe. You can see my face on one of those, and then there's some other videos and some other stuff. So check it out, and we'll see you soon.